Well, charitable trolling is it's a passion of mine, always has been. It's how I connect with the world. It's how I connect with people. So this is something I don't do it for myself. That's what I want people to realize. I do it for others.
I, of course, reached out to AOC personally, both on Twitter and through email, to try and coordinate with her to make sure that the funds made it to her abuela.
She had just bought a Tesla, and she has 2 houses, has Zumba classes, I assume. So she just realized she didn't have it in the budget to help her abuela, and she had to leave her abuela in a dilapidated house in Puerto Rico, living in filth. And so that's when I knew that I had to leap into action. Leave no abuela behind has always been my personal motto. I wish I had known the depths of my own generosity.
We raised $100,000 in 10 hours.
I knew I was a generous person. I didn't realize how much generosity I had in my heart and in my soul. And so when I got into this, it took over my life, and it just became a passion unlike anything I could have possibly predicted. Well, it's not about besting AOC. That's not why I do this. It's about, again, helping others. The fact that I make her look stupid in the process is just icing on the cake. But she also makes herself look stupid all the time. So there was already icing on the cake. And then there's more icing on top of it. There's just like a bunch of icing on the cake. I think Abuela would probably say, she would say something and I wouldn't understand it because she doesn't speak English. But I would know in my heart that what she was really trying to say was, thank you. And you're a handsome, beautiful man. And I love you more than I love my granddaughter. That's what she would say. Where do you go to see walruses? They're excluded from society. There's no walrus representation. You walk down the street. When's the last time you saw a walrus? Unless you're at the Women's March or something. So she's convinced by the internet and by society that if your child is identifying as something, then he really is that thing. And so she tries to raise her child as a walrus, as a sort of trans walrus. I knew it would have an impact. I didn't realize the extent of the impact that it would have.
If you don't know anything about this book, Johnny the Walrus, it doesn't sound like a bad kind of book. It sounds like a nice little children's book, but it's not.
Just the other day, someone came up to me and they said, and there was obviously someone who completed their transition to be a walrus. I could tell just by the way they looked, and they told me how much it meant to them. And I said, I thanked her, and I said, well, I really appreciate it. And also, I love your music, Lizzo. How many Fortune 500 companies are run by trans walruses? 0. How many trans walruses are in elected office? Very few. How many trans walruses are in Hollywood? Michael Moore hasn't made a film in years. So there's certainly a lack of representation, which I trace back to bias, which is why I wrote the book. Well, I first learned about the trans residential community when I made it up in my head. It was an incredible moment of self-discovery for me when Loudoun County said, well, you can't speak here unless you're a resident. And that's when all of a sudden, kind of a huge coincidence, I heard the voice in my head that said, you're a Virginian. I lived in Tennessee. I felt sort of like a Virginian trapped in a Tennessean's body. I identify as sort of state fluid, I guess. I wanted to do something, and I was being told I couldn't do it. And then I realized that it'd be a lot more convenient if I had this identity. That's when the confrontation happened. Self-identity can be convenient, and it can be politically useful. And that's something that the LGBT community has known for years, clearly. But it's for me, it was kind of an awakening moment. My commitment to trolling is absolute. I just got to explain to my wife and kids that we're going to be staying in someone's basement. My wife's commitment to trolling doesn't go quite that far. So she's not necessarily willing to move just because it's a funny joke. I found out. That's part of the burden that you bear as a trans residential American.
What is a woman? Can you tell me that?
You know, this to me goes back to the point that I don't troll for myself, I do it for others. And because of the way that I love people. And so I realized that there are all these women marching at the Women's March, but they don't know what a woman is. They don't know who they are. They're just wandering around confused, you know, and you can see that when you look at the images of these women just wandering around like zombies. And so I wanted to send them a message to help them sort of understand themselves. Well, we were originally going to release What is a Woman in May. We realized that Pride Month starts in June. And so there's this great trolling opportunity there. And I think, talk about Guinness World Records, I think it's the first film in history to have the release date delayed purely for trolling purposes. And I'm quite proud of that. And so we had the movie, What is a Woman, coming out, which you can go to whatisawoman.com to find out more about that. And so I realized I wanted to make money off of the movie. You know, hopefully a lot of it. And also the loving people stuff too.